The galaxy had been quiet for 3,000 years. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the silence that comes when everyone knows their place and nobody dares to speak up. 3 races ruled everything, and they ruled with claws, teeth, and an endless hunger for power. The Zephyrians were the worst of them all, standing 8 feet tall with scales harder than steel and claws that could cut through metal. They had conquered more worlds than anyone could count. Their leader, Apex Commander Vextai, sat on a throne made from the bones of defeated enemies. He had not lost a single battle in over 200 years. The other 2 predator races were just as terrible. The Kethmori looked like giant insects, with 6 arms and minds that worked like a hive. They could swarm over entire planets in days. The Void Hunters were even stranger, beings made of pure energy who could walk through walls and appear anywhere they wanted. Together. These 3 races had divided up the galaxy like pieces of a pie. Every other species was either food, slaves, or something useful to be harvested. This was the natural order of things. It had been this way for so long that most species could not remember when it was different. On a small blue planet called Earth, Captain Jake Morrison was getting ready for humanity's first real journey into deep space. His ship, the New Horizon, was not much to look at. It was built for exploration, not fighting. Jake had been a military pilot before becoming an explorer, but even he knew his small crew would not stand a chance against anything truly dangerous. Out there, his team was small, but good at their jobs. Lisa Park could navigate through space better than anyone Jake had ever met. Carlos Rivera could fix anything that broke, and Beth Collins could talk to anyone in any language once she learned. How their radios worked, they had been traveling for 6 months when they found something that changed everything. It was a small planet called Theta 7, covered in farms and peaceful cities. The people there looked like tall, thin rabbits with fur that changed colors with the seasons. They called themselves the Veltari, and they had been living quiet. Lives for thousands of years. But when Jake's ship arrived, Theta 7 was burning. Huge black ships hung in the sky like metal storm clouds. They were firing down at the cities below, turning homes into ash and families into nothing. The rabbit people were running everywhere, trying to find places to hide. But there was nowhere to go. Jake had seen war before, but this was not war. This was something else. The attackers were not trying to take the planet or capture prisoners. They were hunting for fun. "Captain, we need to leave," Lisa said from her seat at the navigation controls. Her face was pale as she watched the destruction. On the main screen, those ships are huge. We cannot fight them. "She's right, Jake," Carlos added. His hands were already moving over his controls, getting the ship ready to run. "I count 12 enemy ships down there, and each one is 10 times bigger than us." Beth was listening to the radio signals coming from the planet. Her eyes were wide. With fear and confusion, "Captain, I'm picking up their communications. These are not soldiers. They're talking about sport and entertainment. They're enjoying this." Jake stared at the screen and felt something cold settle in his stomach. The burning cities, the running families, the laughter and the enemy radio signals, it all painted a picture that made him sick. One of the black ships turned toward them, was sleek and dangerous looking, covered in weapons that could turn the New Horizon into scrap metal in seconds. A face appeared on their communication screen, reptilian, with yellow eyes and teeth designed for tearing flesh. "Unknown vessel," the creature said in perfect English, though Jake had no idea how it knew their language. "You will surrender immediately. You have entered Zephyrian hunting grounds during an active sport event. Your species is unknown to us, which makes you an interesting prize." The thing's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "I am Sub-Commander Gorthok of the Zephyrian Empire. You will be taken alive for study and entertainment. Do not attempt to flee. It will only make the hunt more enjoyable for us." Jake looked at his crew. Lisa was gripping her controls so tight. Her knuckles were white. Carlos was staring at the engine readings, probably calculating how fast they could run. Beth was still listening to the enemy communications, and her face had gone from pale to green. "They're talking about the people. Down there like they're animals," Beth whispered. "They're rating them on how fun they were to hunt. They're keeping score. Jake thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was 7 years old and believed that people were basically good. She thought that anyone who had the power to help others would choose to do the right thing. She had never seen anything like this, and Jake wanted to make sure she never had too. He thought about all the peaceful species out there who might be going through the same thing as the Veltari. He thought about how many worlds were burning while their inhabitants ran and screamed, died for someone else's entertainment. Then he thought about the 12 enemy ships and his one small exploration vessel, and he made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "Carlos, can you make those mining charges we carry work like bombs?" Jake asked. Carlos blinked in confusion. "Yes, but Captain, you're not thinking of..." "That's exactly what I'm thinking of." Jake turned to Lisa. "Can you get us close too? They're ships without them noticing until it's too late. Maybe if we use the planet's magnetic field to hide our approach. But Jake, this is crazy. We're explorers, not fighters. Today we're both." Jake opened a channel to the Zephyrian ship, Sub-Commander Gorthok. "I have a counteroffer for you." The reptilian face appeared again, looking amused. "Prey does not make offers to predators. Small human, surrender now, or we will take you by force." "Here's my offer," Jake said calmly. "Stop attacking those people and leave this system immediately, or we'll make you leave." Gorthak made a sound that might have been laughter. "You threaten us? One tiny ship against 12 of our hunters? Your species must be defective to produce such broken thinking." "Maybe," Jake admitted, "but let's find out." He cut the communication and turned to his crew. "I know this is not what we signed up for. If anyone wants to object, now is the time." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then she started plotting an attack course. "My grandmother always said that if you have the power to help someone and you don't use it, you're just as guilty as the people hurting them." Carlos was already modifying the mining charges. These people did nothing wrong, they were just living their lives. Beth was still pale, but she nodded. "I'll monitor their communications and warn you if they try anything." The attack was quick and desperate. Lisa used every trick she knew to get them close to the Zephyrian ships without being detected. Carlos had turned their mining equipment into crude but effective bombs. When they struck, they hit 2 of the enemy fighters at the same time, crippling both ships before the Zephyrians understood what was happening. The remaining Zephyrian ships turned away from the planet and focused on the new horizon. But Jake's crew had already done something impossible. They had made predators stop hunting prey to deal with a threat. The battle that followed was short and chaotic. The new horizon was faster and smaller than the enemy ships, and Jake used every dirty trick he had learned in his military days. They damaged 3 more Zephyrian ships before their luck ran out and they had to run. But they had done enough. The Zephyrian attack on Theta 7 stopped. Sub-Commander Gorthak's hunting party left the system, confused and angry. In their thousands of years of conquest, they had never seen prey fight back to protect other prey. As the new horizon limped away from Theta 7 with 847 rescued Veltari aboard, Jake Morrison had no idea that he had just started something that would change the galaxy forever. He only knew that sometimes, when faced with a choice between doing what was safe and doing what was right, there really was no choice at all. The return journey to Earth took 3 months, but it felt like 3 years to Jake Morrison and his crew. The 847 Veltari refugees aboard the New Horizon had told them everything about how the galaxy really worked. The stories kept Jake awake. At night, it made his crew members jump at every strange sound their ship made. The Veltari elder, named Hopkin, had lived for over 300 years and had seen many worlds burn. He explained the 3-tier system to Jake in simple terms that made Jake's blood run cold. At the top were the predators, the 3 species that ruled everything. Below them were the prey species like the Veltari who could be hunted for sport or worked as slaves. At the bottom were resources, species that were considered nothing more than food or raw materials. "Your species is unknown," Hopkin had said in his quiet voice. "This means the predators will be curious about you. They will want to study you, test you, and then decide which category you belong in. Based on what I saw you do at Theta 7, they will not put you in the resource category. That's good, right? Beth had asked. Hopkins' ears had drooped sadly. No, young human. They will put you in the prey category. And once they decide that, they will never stop hunting you until every last human is dead or in chains. When the New Horizon finally reached Earth, Jake went straight to Admiral Rick Stone at the United Earth's Defense Command. Stone was a tough old soldier who had fought in every major conflict of the past 20 years. Jake had expected the Admiral to be skeptical of his story, but Stone listened to every word without interrupting. How long do we have? Stone asked. When Jake finished his report, I don't know, sir. The Zephyrian we fought seemed more confused than angry. They might take some time to decide what to do about us. Stone nodded and pressed a button on his desk. Get me General Patricia Hayes and Dr. Alan Cruz. Tell them to drop everything and get here now. We're initiating Operation Foxhole. Jake had never heard of Operation Foxhole, but he learned quickly. It was Earth's emergency plan for an alien invasion, something most people thought would never be needed. Within hours, every military base on Earth was buzzing with activity. Factories that had been making cars and computers started making weapons and spacecraft instead. General Hayes took charge of the military buildup. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes like steel. Had earned her rank by being smarter and tougher than everyone around her. She put Colonel Mike Turner in charge of training new recruits and gave him an impossible job: turn ordinary people into soldiers who could fight aliens in 6 months. Dr. Cruz was different from the military people. He was a scientist who studied alien life, though until now he had only worked with theories and computer models. When he met the Veltari refugees, his eyes lit up like a child on Christmas morning. Finally, he had real aliens to learn from. This is incredible, Cruz said, as he examined a piece of Zephyrian technology that Jake's crew had managed to salvage. Their weapons are powerful, but simple. They rely on brute force rather than clever engineering. That gives us options. Meanwhile, Jake found himself promoted to captain of a new ship called the Ghost Runner. It was designed for stealth and reconnaissance, built to sneak around the galaxy without being detected. His crew was expanded to include Danny White, former Special Forces soldier who could fight in zero gravity. A linguist who was already learning to speak Veltari. Their first mission was to learn more about the 3 predator species. Jake and his team spent weeks sneaking around the edges of Zephyrian space, watching and recording everything they saw. What they discovered was both encouraging and terrifying. The encouraging news was that the EPCR editors had grown lazy after thousands of years of easy victories. Their ships were powerful, but predictable. Their tactics never changed because they never needed to change. They expected every fight to be easy, so they never prepared for hard ones. The terrifying news was that there were millions of them, spread across thousands of worlds with weapons that could destroy entire planets, or like ants trying to fight elephants, Danny said after reviewing their intelligence reports. Maybe, Jake replied, but ants can win if they're smart about it. Back on Earth, Admiral Stone was dealing with a different problem. The world's governments were arguing about how to respond to the alien threat. Some wanted to try diplomacy. Others wanted to hide and hope the aliens never found Earth. A few wanted to surrender immediately and beg for mercy. Stone had no patience for any of these ideas. You can't negotiate with something that sees you as food, he told the United Nations Security Council. You can't hide from something that owns faster-than-light travel. And you definitely can't surrender to something that hunts people for entertainment. The debate ended when long-range sensors detected a large alien fleet heading toward Earth's solar system. The Zephyrians had found them. War leader Krexter commanded the Zephyrian fleet from his flagship, the Death of Worlds. He was one of their best military commanders, with over 50 conquered worlds to his credit. He expected the human homeworld to fall within a few days. That's just like all the others. But when his fleet arrived at Earth, they found something no Zephyrian had ever encountered before: organized resistance. Admiral Stone commanded Earth's defense from Liberty Base, a military station built on the far side of the moon. Commander Sarah Bennett led the fighter squadrons, pilots like Lieutenant Tony Rodriguez and Captain Amy Clark, flying ships that had been built in the past 6 months specifically to fight aliens. The first battle happened near Luna Base, humanity's forward military outpost. Bennett's pilots flew their fighters like they were possessed, using tactics that made no sense to the Zephyrian commanders. They turned their own ships into weapons, ramming damaged fighters into Zephyrian cruisers. They used the moon's gravity to slingshot around obstacles and attack from impossible angles. War leader Krexter watched in confusion as his massive fleet struggled against tiny human fighters that refused to behave like proper prey. Prey were supposed to run away. Prey were supposed to be easy to catch. These humans kept doing things that prey never did. When Lieutenant Rodriguez's fighter was too damaged to keep flying, he aimed it at the bridge of a Zephyrian destroyer and activated his engines at full power. The explosion took out the entire ship's command center. What kind of prey destroys itself to hurt predators? Krexter asked his second-in-command. I do not know, war leader. Its behavior is not in any of our tactical manuals. The battle lasted for 18 hours. When it was over, Krexter had lost a third of his fleet, the worst defeat any Zephyrian commander had suffered in over 1,000 years. He was forced to retreat not because the humans had superior numbers or weapons, but because they fought like nothing he had ever seen before. As the Zephyrian fleet limped away from Earth, war leader Krexter sent a message back to Apex Commander Vex thee. The message was short and simple. The humans are not prey. I do not know what they are, but they are not prey. On Earth, the celebrations were brief. Admiral Stone knew that the Zephyrians would be back, and next time they would be ready for human tactics. But for now, humanity had achieved something. Incredible, they had made the galaxy's apex predators retreat. Dr. Cruz was busy studying the wreckage from the battle. Every piece of Zephyrian technology they could salvage would help them build better defenses. More importantly, he was learning about Zephyrian psychology from interrogating the few prisoners they had taken.
Ow.
They literally cannot understand the concept of prey fighting back, Cruz explained to Admiral Stone. It's not that they think it's unlikely, they think it's impossible. Their entire worldview is built around the idea that strong things eat weak things, and weak things accept. Jake Morrison was already planning his next reconnaissance mission. The battle had proven that humans could fight the predators, but fighting and winning were two different things. Humanity was going to survive, they needed allies. The galaxy was full of prey species who had been suffering under predator rule. For thousands of years, maybe it was time to show them that predators could bleed, prey could bite back, as Jake prepared the Ghost Runner for another dangerous journey into alien space. Boy thought about what Hopkins had told him about the three-tier system. The predators had created a galaxy where strength meant the right to hurt others, and weakness meant accepting that hurt. But Jake was starting to think there was a fourth option, one that the predators had never considered. What if the weak ones stopped accepting their fate and started working together? What if prey became protectors instead of victims? It was a dangerous idea, but dangerous ideas were all humanity had left. 6 months after the battle at Earth, the galaxy was talking. Word spread through underground networks and secret communications that the impossible had happened. Prey had made predators retreat. The Zephyrians tried to keep the news quiet, but secrets have a way of traveling faster than official reports. On countless worlds where slave species lived in fear, whispered conversations began in hidden places. The words were always the same. Is it true? Did someone really fight back and win? General Hayes had established something called the Shepherd Protocol. It was a secret program designed to contact prey species across the galaxy and teach them that resistance was possible. The name came from an old Earth saying about protecting sheep from wolves. Though Hayes knew that the galaxy's prey species were far from helpless once they learned how to work together, Captain Lisa Park had been promoted after Jake Morrison was captured during a reconnaissance mission behind enemy lines. She now commanded the Ghost Runner and its expanded crew, which included Commander Pete Walsh and Intelligence Officer Kelly Brooks. Their job was to make contact with potential allies and show them that the predators could be defeated. The human approach was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of conquering prey species or demanding tribute, humans offered partnership. They shared technology, tactics, and most importantly, hope. This concept was so strange that many alien species initially thought it was a trap set by one of the predator races. Meanwhile, Apex Commander Vexthai was dealing with his own problems. The loss of war leader Krexter's fleet had sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian Empire. For the first time in living memory, their military had suffered a significant defeat. Vexthai declared humans to be apex defectives, a species that had somehow broken the natural order of things. The situation was serious enough that Vexthai did something unprecedented. He reached out to the other two predator species for help. Swarm Queen Zethera of the Kethmorian Prime Phase, Morden of the Void Hunters both agreed to meet with him. The three races had never worked together before because they had never needed. To dot their alliance was called the Great Cleansing, a joint operation designed to completely destroy humanity and any species that helped them. For the first time in galactic history, all three predator races would coordinate their attacks. But while the predators were planning, humans were working. Captain Park's first major success came on a mining world called Zarian 4. The planet was home to the Gurthok, a species that looked like giant bears covered in thick fur and muscles. They had been mining precious metals for the Kethmori for over 200 years. Colonel Turner, who had been promoted from his training duties on Earth, worked with the Gurthok leader Brumtok to plan something that had never been attempted. Before a full-scale rebellion against predator rule, the humans brought expertise in tactics and technology. Plant engineer Nick Adams and tactical specialist Diane Murphy taught the Gurthok how to turn their intimate knowledge of the mine tunnels into a military advantage. The Gurthok brought something equally valuable: raw determination and centuries of built-up anger. When the rebellion began, it caught the Kethmori completely off guard. The Gurthok had always been model slaves, working hard and never causing trouble. The Kethmori garrison had grown lazy and comfortable, never expecting their mining equipment to be turned into weapons or their workers to become soldiers. The battle for Zarian 4 lasted 3 days. The Gurthok used guerrilla tactics, striking from the tunnels and disappearing before the Kethmori could respond. They destroyed the orbital communications array, preventing the garrison from calling for help. By the time Kethmori reinforcements arrived, the planet's defense platforms were under rebel control. When the Kethmori fleet tried to retake the planet, they faced something they had never encountered: organized resistance from a species they considered property. The Gurthok fought with desperate courage. The humans provided tactical support and advanced weaponry. The rebellion succeeded. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a prey species had completely freed itself from predator control. The news spread like wildfire across the galaxy, carried by the same underground networks that had spread word of humanity's victory at Earth. Swarm Queen Zethara was furious. She immediately dispatched a massive fleet to recapture Zarian 4 and make an example of the rebels. But when her forces arrived, they found the planet abandoned except for automated defenses and a single message broadcast on all frequencies: "We are no longer your slaves. We will never be your slaves again." The Predator Alliance responded with overwhelming force. All three races launched coordinated attacks against known human positions and any world suspected of harboring rebels. Earth faced another massive assault, this time from all three predator species. Simultaneously, Admiral Stone commanded the defense from the rebuilt Liberty Base. The battle was more desperate than the first one because the enemy had learned from their previous defeat. They no longer underestimated human tactics, and they brought enough firepower to destroy the entire solar system if necessary. Colonel Bennett, promoted after her heroic leadership in the first battle, coordinated the fighter squadrons. Major Rodriguez, who had somehow survived his ramming attack during the first battle, led the most dangerous missions against enemy capital ships. Captain Morrison had escaped from Zephyrian captivity with valuable intelligence about enemy weak points and psychological profiles. The second battle for Earth revealed humanity's greatest strength, their ability to adapt under pressure, while the Predator Alliance used their traditional tactics of overwhelming force. Humans continuously modified their approach during the fight. Engineer crews developed new weapons systems in real time, while pilots improvised maneuvers that violated every principle of conventional space combat. The battle lasted for a week. When it was over, Earth was still free, and the Predator Alliance had lost ships from all three fleets. More importantly, the entire galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. Three apex predator species working together had failed to defeat a single prey world. The psychological impact was enormous. If humanity could survive an attack by all three predator races, then maybe other prey species could survive too. Dr. Foster's diplomatic corps had been busy during the fighting. Operating from hidden bases throughout the galaxy, they had successfully contacted 17 different prey species, offered unique capabilities that complemented human strengths. The aquatic. Murdai provided underwater bases that predator scanners could not detect. The crystalline Chardon offered advanced computing, power that could break predator communication codes. The gaseous nebula dancers created communication networks that were undetectable to conventional sensors. Most importantly, humanity began training multi-species resistant cells. Veterans like Sergeant Walsh and Lieutenant Brooks served as advisors, two alien freedom fighters, teaching them human tactics while learning about alien capabilities. The galaxy was changing. The rigid hierarchy that had existed for thousands of years was beginning to crack. Prey species that had never imagined fighting back were learning that predators could be hurt, could be confused, could even be defeated on his command ship. Apex Commander Vexti stared at the reports from the failed assault on Earth. His alliance with the other predator races had achieved tactical victories but failed in their strategic objective. The humans were still alive, still spreading their dangerous ideas, and still proving that prey could fight back. Worse, the alliance itself was starting to fracture. Swarm Queen Zathara blamed the Void Hunters for not providing enough support. During the Earth's attack, Prime Phase Morden claimed that Zephyrian tactics were outdated and ineffective. The three races had worked together once, but their natural competitiveness was making cooperation difficult. Vexthi realized that the human threat was more dangerous than he had initially thought. They were not just another prey species that had learned to fight, they were something entirely new. They were prey that had learned to turn other prey into hunters. The galaxy had never seen anything like it before. For thousands of years, strength had meant the right to dominate others. Weakness had meant accepting that domination. But humanity had introduced a third option: cooperation. Between the weak to challenge the strong, it was a concept that threatened the entire foundation of predator civilization. If it spread too far, if too many prey species learned to work together, then the age of apex predators might finally come to an end. On Earth, Admiral Stone was planning the next phase of humanity's strategy. The defensive victories had proven that humans could protect themselves, but survival was not enough. If humanity wanted to be truly safe, they needed to change the galaxy itself. That meant taking the fight to the predators' home worlds. It meant showing every prey species in the galaxy that their oppressors were not invincible. It meant proving that predators were only dangerous when their prey remained divided and afraid. The real war was just beginning. The galaxy was no longer quiet. Across thousands of worlds, species that had been silent for millennia were finding their voices. The Free Species Coalition, as the Resistance Network came to be known, operated from hidden bases in asteroid fields, underwater cities, gas clouds that traditional scanners could not penetrate. Admiral Stone had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Coalition forces and now worked from the mobile command ship Defiance. The staff included representatives from 23 different species, each bringing their own expertise to the fight. Veltari Intelligence Chief Wiper could predict predator movements with frightening accuracy, while Gurthok Military Advisor Brumtok provided insights into ground combat that even experienced human generals found valuable. Captain Park commanded the Coalition's Rapid Response Fleet from her flagship Unity. Her ship represented something new in Galactic history, a vessel designed from the ground up for multi-species cooperation rather than single-species dominance. The crew included humans, Murdai, Chardon, and even a few Zephyrian defectors, who had grown disgusted with their empire's methods. The ship's design reflected this cooperation, and environmental systems could support 6 different atmospheric requirements. Simultaneously, the command bridge had workstations designed for species with claws, tentacles, and energy-based forms. Most importantly, every decision required input from multiple species, preventing any one race from dominating the others. Dr. Cruz had become the Coalition's leading expert on enemy psychology, working with former Predator prisoners and the growing number of defectors from all three enemy species. He had mapped the mental weaknesses that came with thousands of years of unchallenged dominance. The Predators could not understand cooperation between species they considered prey. Their rigid thinking made them predictable, while their overconfidence led to critical mistakes. They expected prey species to compete with each other for scraps, not work together as equals. Specialist Murphy led what the Coalition called ghost teams, small units that struck Predator installations and vanished.
Leaving behind evidence
That the attacks came from impossible cooperation between different species. Zephyrian Base might be destroyed by weapons that could only work underwater. Operated by species that could only survive in gas giant atmospheres, coordinated by beings that existed as pure energy. These psychological warfare tactics were more effective than direct military confrontation. The Predators began to doubt their own intelligence reports and question the loyalty of their subordinate species. The Coalition's first major victory came when Commander Rodriguez led a combined assault against Hive World Zethmar, the Kethmori's primary breeding planet. The attack succeeded because it violated every principle the Kethmori understood about warfare, instead of trying to match the Kethmori's superior numbers. The Coalition used coordinated strikes by multiple species, each exploiting different weaknesses. The aquatic Murdai attacked through the Hive's water recycling systems, flooding critical areas with a paralytic toxin that only affected insectoid nervous systems. The crystalline shard overloaded the Hive's cybernetic communication networks. With cascading feedback loops, human Marines provided mobile firepower and tactical coordination. The battle for Zethmar lasted 12 hours. When it was over, Swarm Queen Zethera was dead, and the Kethmori hive mind was fragmenting into smaller, competing factions. For the first time in galactic history, major predator species faced the possibility of complete extinction. The victory came at a cost. The Coalition lost 14 ships and over 3,000 personnel from 7 different species. But the psychological impact was enormous. If the Kethmori could be defeated on their own homeworld, then no predator stronghold was truly safe. Prime Phase. Morden of the Void Hunters responded with a desperate counterattack that shocked even the Coalition's leaders, using phase bombs that could destroy entire star systems. The Void Hunters eliminated 12 Coalition worlds in a single coordinated strike. Battleface Krixmal commanded the assault from a ship that existed partially outside normal space. The attack was designed to show prey species what happened when they challenged their betters. Higher civilizations were wiped out in seconds, their planets reduced to cosmic dust. The Coalition worlds of New Geneva, Theta 7, and Zarian 4 were among the casualties. Millions of humans, Veltari and Girthak, died in the space between heartbeats. The message was clear: the Predators destroy the galaxy rather than lose control of it. General Hayes realized that the war had entered a new phase. The Predators were no longer fighting to maintain their dominance. They were fighting to prevent their own extinction. That made them infinitely more dangerous. Colonel Turner, now leading the Coalition Marine Corps, reported a disturbing trend. Among human soldiers, the constant warfare was changing humanity in ways that worried their alien allies. Human troops were becoming increasingly ruthless, sometimes treating surrendering predator forces with the same brutality the Predators had once shown to prey species. "We're becoming like them," Turner told Supreme Commander Stone during a private Sazam meeting aboard the Defiance. "My Marines used to show mercy to defeated enemies. Now they execute prisoners and justify it by pointing to Predator atrocities." Captain Morrison, serving as Coalition Intelligence Chief, had discovered evidence of the same problem among human commanders. Some were beginning to view their alien allies as subordinates rather than partners, expecting obedience instead of requesting cooperation. "The question isn't whether we can win this war," Morrison told Stone. "The question is whether we can win it without becoming the very thing we're fighting against." Dr. Foster's diplomatic corps worked overtime to address These concerns, while maintaining coalition unity, the challenge was to defeat an enemy that had ruled through fear and violence without adopting their methods. It was a narrow path between victory and moral corruption. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A group of Zephyrian civilians, led by a former warrior named Vexvon, contacted the coalition through secret channels. They claimed that Apex Commander Vexthai had become genuinely insane, willing to destroy Zephyrian worlds to deny them to the coalition. He no longer fights for the Empire, Vexvon explained during a clandestine meeting with Captain Park. He fights to prove that his vision of natural order is correct, even if it means killing every Zephyrian in the galaxy. The Zephyrian rebels offered something unprecedented intelligence about predator military plans in exchange for protection of non-combatant Zephyrians. The concept of showing mercy to one's enemies was so alien to Zephyrian culture that many rebels initially thought it was an elaborate coalition trap. But Supreme Commander Stone surprised everyone, including his own staff, by agreeing to the proposal. Coalition forces would actively work to protect Zephorian civilians even while fighting Zephorian military units. "We're not fighting the Zephorian people," Stone announced to his senior commanders. "We're fighting the system that turned them into predators. If we want to create a better galaxy, we need to prove that strength doesn't have to mean cruelty." The decision split the coalition leadership. Some argued that showing mercy to predator civilians was a tactical mistake that would cost coalition lives. Others believed it was the only way to maintain the moral authority that had attracted so many species to their cause. The debate was settled when Dr. Cruz presented his analysis of predator psychology. "Fear is what keeps the predator system working," he explained. "Every prey species obeys because they're afraid of what will happen if they don't. If we use the same fear tactics, we'll just be replacing one group of predators with another." The mercy policy had an unexpected effect on the war itself. Zephyrian units began surrendering rather than fighting to the death, knowing that coalition forces would treat them fairly. Defections from all three predator species increased dramatically as word spread that the coalition protected even former enemies. On his command ship, Apex Commander Vexthai watched his empire crumble from within. The coalition's refusal to behave like traditional conquerors was destroying the psychological foundations of predator rule. When prey species stopped being afraid and started working together, the entire galactic order collapsed. Vexthai made a decision that would have consequences across the galaxy. If he could not maintain predator dominance through strength, he would maintain it through destruction. He began preparing for a final assault on the coalition, one that would either restore the natural order or eliminate every living thing that challenged it. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just who ruled the galaxy, but what kind of galaxy would survive the conflict. The age of apex predators was ending, but what would replace it remained to be seen. The final message from Apex Commander Vexthai reached every communication system in the galaxy simultaneously. His scaled face appeared on screens from the core worlds to the outer rim, yellow eyes blazing with the fury of a dying empire. "Attention! All species Vexith," announced in a voice that carried 3,000 years of absolute authority. "The natural order has been corrupted by defective prey that refuses to accept its place. If this galaxy cannot exist as it should, then it will not exist at all." Behind him, the massive form of his flagship Apex Dominion was visible, along with hundreds of other Zephyrian vessels. Each ship bristled with planet-killer weapons, devices capable of turning entire worlds into lifeless rocks. "We begin the final solution in 72 hours. Every world that has harbored the human disease will be cleansed. Every species that has forgotten its proper place will be exterminated. The galaxy will return to silence, and from that silence, a proper order will emerge." The transmission ended, leaving billions of beings across thousands of worlds in stunned silence. The Zephyrian Empire was prepared to commit galactic genocide rather than accept defeat. On the bridge of the Defiance, Supreme Commander Stone stared at the tactical display showing Zephyrian forces massing near the galactic core. Numbers were sobering, over 2,000 ships, each carrying enough firepower to sterilize a planet. Even with all coalition forces combined, they were outnumbered 3-1. How long until they reached the populated systems? Stone asked his Veltari intelligence chief. 68 hours at their current speed, Wiper replied, her ears drooping with worry. It will begin with the Coalition's newest member worlds, the ones with the smallest defenses. Stone turned to Captain Park, who had just arrived from coordinating the evacuation fleets. How many people can we save? Maybe 10%, Park said quietly. We don't have enough ships to evacuate entire worlds, and most species won't leave their homelands even to save their lives. The situation seemed hopeless until Dr. Foster brought news that changed everything. Her diplomatic team had been contacted by war leader Vexvan and his Zephyrian rebels, who had a desperate proposal. They want to help us stop Vexii Foster, explained to the senior staff. But they're asking us to do something that goes against everything their culture believes in. What are they asking? Stone replied. They want us to promise that we'll protect Zephyrian civilians when this is over. Not just the rebels, all Zephyrians, including the ones who are fighting us right now. The request created an immediate debate among coalition leadership. Colonel Turner and several other military commanders argued that protecting their enemies was suicide. Captain Morrison and the Intelligence Division worried that it was a trap designed to weaken coalition resolve. But Dr. Cruz had a different perspective. This is exactly what we've been fighting for, he said. The right of all species to exist without fear, regardless of what they've done in the past. If we abandon that principle now, we're no better than the predators we're trying to stop. Stone made his decision, send word to Vexvan. We accept their terms. Coalition forces will protect all Zephyrian civilians, combatant and non-combatant alike. The final battle began in the Zephyr system, above the Predator homeworld itself. Apex Commander Vexia had expected the Coalition to defend their own worlds, not attack his. The psychological impact of prey species attacking the ultimate Predator stronghold was exactly what Stone had hoped for. The Coalition fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships from 43 different species fought in perfect coordination, their different technologies and capabilities combining into something greater than the sum of their parts. Human tactical flexibility merged with Murdi underwater expertise, and Shardan computational power. Girthak ground forces prepared to assault Zephyrian positions, while Dabila dancers provided untraceable communications. Leading the assault was Commander Bennett, now in charge of the Coalition's primary battle group. Beside her flew war leader Vexvan in a captured Zephyrian cruiser, its hull painted with Coalition markings. The sight of Zephyrians fighting alongside their former prey species broke the morale of many Imperial units. Attention all Zephyrian forces, Vexvan broadcast on military frequencies. Vexley has lost his mind. He plans to destroy our homeworld rather than accept that the old ways are dead. Join us and help build something better. The battle for Zephyr Prime lasted 18 hours and changed the nature of galactic warfare forever. Traditional Predator tactics of overwhelming force met Coalition strategies based on cooperation and adaptation. Where Zephyrian ships fought as individual units, Coalition vessels worked as integrated teams. Major Rodriguez, now leading an elite fighter squadron, coordinated his attack runs with Murdi submarines that could operate in the planet's vast oceans and Void Hunter defectors who could phase through enemy shields. The complexity of multi-species cooperation confused Zephyrian commanders, who had never seen anything like it. The turning point came when Captain Park's flagship Unity engaged Vex Thesef's Apex Dominion directly. The two ships were evenly matched in firepower, but Unity had something the Zephyrian vessel lacked: a crew that functioned as a single organism, despite being made up of 6 different species. Fire control. This is the captain, Park announced calmly, as enemy weapons tore through Unity's shields. Coordinate with engineering for maximum efficiency? Aye, Captain, came the reply from her Shardan weapons officer, whose crystalline structure could process targeting data faster than any organic brain. Engineering? Give me everything we have, Park continued. All power available, Captain, responded her Murdi engineer. Species' natural understanding of fluid dynamics, made them excellent at managing power flow systems. The battle between the two flagships became a symbol of the larger conflict. Vexai fought with the fury of a predator, defending his territory. But Park fought with the coordinated strength of multiple species working toward a common goal. When Vexai's ship finally exploded, taking the Apex Commander with it, something fundamental changed in the galaxy. The death of the ultimate Apex Predator marked the end of an era that had lasted for thousands of years, but the real challenge was just beginning. With the Predator system destroyed, the Coalition faced the question of what would replace it. Some human leaders flush with victory suggested that humanity should lead the new galactic order. After all, they had been the ones to start the rebellion and organize the Coalition. Colonel Stevens, who had risen through the ranks during the war, voiced what many humans were thinking. We've proven ourselves to be the strongest species in the galaxy. We should take charge and make sure something like this never happens again. The proposal created a crisis within the Coalition. Many alien species had joined the rebellion to escape Predator rule, not to accept human rule instead. If humanity claimed dominance, the Coalition would splinter into competing factions, and the galaxy would return to the old cycle of oppression. The debate was resolved when Dr. Foster proposed the shepherding doctrine, a set of principles that would govern the new galactic order. Humanity would not rule the galaxy. Instead, they would serve as protectors and mediators, using their strength to prevent any species from achieving apex predator status again. The doctrine established several key rules. No single species could dominate others. All species had the right to govern themselves. Conflicts between species must be resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. Military force could only be used to prevent oppression, never to create it. Most importantly, the doctrine included safeguards against human dominance. Coalition forces would be commanded by officers from multiple species. Human military units would always include non-human personnel. Major decisions affecting the galaxy would require approval from representatives of all member species. 10 years after the final battle, Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the Coalition's new capital. The station orbited between 3 star systems, symbolizing the cooperation between different worlds that had made victory possible. As Director of Interspecies Relations, Morrison oversaw the complex web of agreements and treaties that kept the peace. It was not easy work. Species that had been enemies for millennia did not become friends overnight. Old prejudices and new conflicts required constant attention. But the galaxy had changed in ways that would have been impossible to imagine during the dark years of Predator rule. Former slave species now governed themselves. Ancient enemies worked together on scientific projects and trade agreements. Children grew up believing that cooperation was normal and oppression was unthinkable. The former predator species had adapted to the new order in different ways. Many Zephyrians had joined Coalition military forces, their natural warrior instincts channeled toward protecting others rather than conquering them. The surviving Kethmori had formed democratic councils that made decisions through consensus, rather than hive mind domination. The Void Hunters had become the galaxy's premier explorers, using their unique abilities to discover new worlds and new forms of life.